Joining us right now is Pete Buttigieg. Of course, he is the former transportation secretary under President Biden. And Secretary, thank you for being with us this morning.
Thanks for having me in.
When I first looked at the notes, I kind of laughed because we said we were going to have you on to talk about a reaction to the numbers. I said we're not actually talking to him about a reaction to the numbers, but they did say you were interested in speaking about inflation. So let's start there. We got these numbers, not as hot as had been anticipated, but we knew that energy prices were going to be higher, up 10% this time around. Food prices up 0%, but there are concerns those will rise down the road. What are your thoughts on where we stand right now?
Yeah, as feared, inflation is up. And the big thing that's different right now, I think, is that in many periods in American history, including recent history, you've had inflation and then the administration does things to try to reduce it. Sometimes they succeed, sometimes they fail. But the administration is trying to push prices down, normally. Right now, we have the administration actively making prices higher. They're actively making goods prices higher with the tariffs, obviously. Typical family paid about $1,000 more for that. They're actively making energy prices higher by killing energy transmission projects as well as generation projects. And they're, of course, actively making energy prices higher with a war that nobody wanted, nobody asked for. And that, of course, is the direct reason why inflation is higher now than it was before. To see inflation tripling from last month, not because the administration tried and failed to lower prices, you could put it that way, but really because they actively increased them.
I see your point with tariffs. That's certainly valid when you look at some of these issues. But with the war, the administration obviously thinks it was going after security issue with Iran, with a player that potentially was very close to having a nuclear weapon.
Well, that right there is a huge fail for the White House because they assured us that the nuclear program was obliterated a year ago. Moreover, we've seen that it's possible, or at least it used to be possible, before U.S. credibility was demolished by this White House, to stop Iran from having a nuclear weapon through diplomacy. I believe the president started this war because he wanted to. And now we're in a situation where you've got a war that we didn't need to have. Iran has enormous leverage now. Certainly their military has been degraded. But let's be very clear about why the president backed down. Why did the president back down from his demands?
Let's start with
why is the president taking a weaker position than he started with?
Let's start with just the prospect of the war to begin with.
Yeah.
Look, the argument that he started this because he wanted to, there are plenty of people who think there was a very real threat of nuclear. It was presented through intelligence. Israel had an opportunity to really take and strike at this point. And as for diplomacy, that was sunsetting anyway.
Well, it wasn't sunsetting. It was detonated by the first Trump administration.
It was knocked out, but it was going to sunset if it hadn't already.
They were lying about everything.
Right. The idea of they had much longer range missiles than they ever admitted
compliance
to.
Problems,
We've seen all of that
sure.
play out.
But the point is, they had been stopped from getting anywhere near a nuclear weapon. And last year, the president assured us that he ended their nuclear ambitions. If he wants to come clean with the American people that he failed to do that, then he has to say that before he launches the war.
Democrats at that time said, no, you haven't. And then you haven't.
Clearly he hadn't.
Yeah. Clearly that he hadn't. So then we needed to go back and take care of it, unless you really think it's okay for Iran to have a nuclear weapon.
But again, they don't have a nuclear weapon. They weren't about to get a nuclear weapon.
Why do you keep saying they weren't about to go? Steve Witkoff said they had enough fissible material for 11 bombs.
So are you acknowledging the president lied when he said that their program was obliterated?
No one knew what happened at Fordo.
Either he didn't know or he was lying.
Okay.
Which is it?
Is that really the point? Whether or not
the point isn't my neighbors in Michigan are paying more for gas.
Whether or not he knew it was obliterated or not is not the point. If it wasn't obliterated, then you have to do something. You can't go back and say, well, you lied about this,
Joe,
so that we can't actually do what we need to do.
Joe, America is weaker because the president launched this war.
That's your opinion. That's not.
No, but it's clear, and I'll tell you why. Because
we
when
had
Trump,
the Secretary of NATO say the world is a safer place. He just said that yesterday.
His job is to butter up the president. But why do you think the president chickened out on his demand? Why do you think the president backed off of his demand? The president said,
backed off of which demand?
Unconditional surrender. Right now, instead of unconditional surrender, which was the president's demand just 1 month.
This is not over yet, number one.
Is this unconditional surrender?
I don't know what it's going to end up being.
I'll tell you what we've got.
If the Strait reopens again and they have no Navy.
So the best case scenario is the Strait being open. The Strait was open before he started this.
Yeah,
and
but they were close to having a nuclear weapon. 11 nuclear weapons.
We had other ways of dealing with
it. Like what? Obama's way?
Well, that worked.
That did not work.
Did they get a nuclear weapon under Obama?
They were close enough within months.
No. And the president, again, assured us the whole point of bombing them last year was to quote-unquote obliterate the nuclear program.
I understand that.
And look, I'm saying this as somebody who knows what it's like to be sent to war by a U.S. president. And when a president sends you to war, when you and your buddies are on that gray tail plane going into a war zone, you do it with some level of confidence, some level of assurance that your chain of command, all the president of the United States would not do this if they didn't have a choice.
Now that we're there, do you hope this has a successful outcome? There were 40,000 Iranians that were slaughtered by the same regime. 47 years of killing Americans. Stirring trouble all around the world.
And how do you feel about that regime being left intact by this president?
I don't know if that's going to be the case, and I don't know what might happen.
Is that an argument?
So you don't want this to work, and it was just a bad move. You want us to pull out now?
Well, look, there's no obvious way out now, but I want to make sure that this ends in a way that, first of all, our economy can recover, that we're not paying so much for gas. I mean, right now, oil's $100, jet fuel's $200, gas is over $4, diesel's like $5.50.
You averaged 380 under Biden for 4 years.
Yeah, and when we left, inflation was lower than it is today.
You accounted for 21.5% price increase.
This president took the
inflation
rate up. This president took the inflation rate up. It's more than 3% year on year. You saw the numbers just come out. It's more than 3% year on year.
Okay.
Isn't it?
PCE
Am I
four
mistaken?
It is. The math is direct.
Okay.
The math is math.
It fluctuates each month from 2.7 to 3%.
It's higher than when he got here,
It's
Joe.
not 9%.
His central campaign promise was he was going to take inflation and drive it down, and instead he took inflation and it's up.
It's not 9%. I thought in the Fed,
It was 3 when he got here, and now it's more. It could
around,
not be simpler than that.
It's around 3, and we're involved in a war
He
with
said
a
on day one it would go down. He came in on day one, and now it's up.
It's up to 3%. It was 21.5% price
promised
increases
it would go
over
down
4
and it
years. Over 4 years, it was 21.5%.
He promised it would go down.
Democrats own the affordability crisis.
Listen to me.
Period.
Why did the president fail to keep his promise?
You don't think Democrats own the affordability crisis?
Why did the president fail to keep his promise to lower prices, in your opinion?
I'm laughing because this piece of it is basic. The president did say that he wanted to be in office to bring inflation down, and he has not brought inflation down. That's all.
He drove it up. He not only failed, he drove it up.
Mr. Secretary, let's talk
Tariffs
a little bit.
have had a minimal effect.
You tell a family where I live that $1,000 per household is minimal.
From the 21.5% increase that the Democrats.
No, we can argue all day about just how bad COVID was and how bad it got and what it took to come back from that. But you call it where I live, $1,000 per household isn't minimal.
Now Democrats found religion on inflation. After presiding over the worst inflation in 40 years, now you found religion.
It's 2026. They're in charge. You guys are in charge.
I'm aware of that.
What are you going to do differently?
Look,
what are you going to do differently to make the prices actually go down like you promised a year ago?
Number one, we got to get through this war, and you've heard people.
We got to get through this war. We didn't have to be fighting this war. What are we doing?
That's a matter of opinion. You can't say that.
It's a matter of opinion that I share with most Americans and a large number of Republicans and a whole bunch of MAGA people who bought into this president because they actually believed in what he said he would get us into the war.
Republican approval for the war.
You don't start with the approval you have within your own party, but the point is the MAGA coalition.
Democrats aren't going to approve of anything.
I'm talking about Americans. Americans disapprove of the president and their right to do so.
He's got the same approval rating other presidents have had at this point in the term, a little bit above, 42%.
This president right now is unpopular for very good reasons. One of which is
no
that
more
he's made
unpopular
life
than
more
Obama was or
expensive.
Biden was at the same point of his presidency.
That depends on which poll you're looking at, but by and large, no. I'm sorry, but I've been out on the trail. I was in Marjorie Taylor Greene's district. Marjorie Taylor Greene. This is a Trump plus 38 district. Or it was.
I know
we
the
had
numbers.
500 people.
You'll get a chance to prove that in November this year.
Okay. We had a chance to prove it last week.
The Senate might go. I understand.
Yeah, because people are
presidents make difficult decisions, obviously.
Yeah, but usually they make difficult decisions to try to make other people better off. This president's made decisions to make himself better off. That's definitely happened. If you're the kind of person who can pay $1 million for the entry fee to Mar-a-Lago, then you're doing great. But everybody else is hurting right now.
Mr. Secretary, let's talk about a few things that fell under your former purview when you look at transportation. One of the issues we're dealing with right now is a government shutdown that's been affecting the TSA agents. Obviously, the president has started paying them. The lines have gone down. But when you combine that with the shortage we have with air traffic controllers, I think a lot of people feel less safe in the air right now. What happened? How do we fix it?
Here's what I can tell you. For about 3 decades, the number of air traffic controllers in this country went down. We worked hard to make it go back up. And I was the first secretary in decades to hand my successor an air traffic control workforce that was growing instead of shrinking. When we left, it was a little bit shy of 11,000. I know that right away, air traffic controllers got an email, the notorious Elon email, saying you should go work in the private sector instead. Then there was this scramble saying, oh, we didn't mean you should stay. The last time I saw the secretary in front of Congress testifying on whether the number is going up and down, we didn't get a clear answer. So I don't know exactly.
We lost more than 300 because of the government shutdown.
Say again?
We lost more than 300.
Yeah, okay, that's not surprising, right? I mean, this is a tough job on the best of days. And these controllers, let's remember.
And I'm sorry, I'm confusing 300 with the TSA agents, not with the controllers.
But these controllers do such an important job and such a good job. I mean, we forget sometimes the track record of U.S. aviation safety over the last 10, 20 years.
I just wonder if we're stretching them to these extreme lengths.
Absolutely.
Accident that happened at LaGuardia. No, not that this was because of this. They're still investigating it. But there were only 2 air traffic controllers in the tower at that point. one of whom was responsible for landing active flights, dealing with a crisis, and trying to guide a fire crew across an active runway.
Yeah, and it's not just how many are in the tower, but when you have fewer on the bench, more of them are working overtime, or they're working these tough schedules, then you're going to have fatigue issues. We did a whole project on fatigue. I trust and expect that the FAA currently is working on this. All of this is to say, look, I've got my differences with my successor. Obviously, one area where I'm rooting for him to succeed and for the FAA to succeed is to get more controllers, to get the technology up to speed. These implementations are notoriously
You're not for the way the Democrats orchestrated 2 shutdowns of the government.
I thought we were talking about air traffic controllers, but we can come to that. But I want to make sure we
that's why they're not. That's why they're not. But the TSA agents are not being paid because of the government shutdown. Right?
They can be paid at the stroke of a pen by this president.
All right. If you carve out, but the government is shut down. That part is shut down. Partial shutdown because of Democrats.
Well, no, they're shut down because Speaker Johnson refuses to even have an up or down vote on the bipartisan compromise.
That's compromise. But just closing down.
Yeah, it's a compromise. That's how you solve problems.
I will say Jay Johnson was here. He was the former Secretary of Homeland
Security. You don't like when Republicans do it.
And he said nobody should be dealing with any government shutdowns, no matter who's in power.
No, that's right. Look, this is, I think.
And you said, well, we learned from Republicans. You said we learned from Republicans.
Huh? Well, no, what I said is you guys started it. But look,
we started it.
I'm being a little playful about that. But can we all agree that this is no way to run a ball club? I was looking up the last time that a budget actually got. The last time a budget actually got passed on time, like all 12 appropriations in the whole budget, was in the 90s. And by the way, on time means on the eve of the new fiscal year. Is there anybody who runs a company of any size who would approve their budget the day before the new fiscal year, let alone months into the new fiscal? This is insane. And it's one of many, many, many things we're doing in this country, acting as if it's normal. None of this is normal. It's not normal to fail to have a budget or an appropriation before the deadline. It's not normal to have our Congress as out of whack as it is. If I were to sit here and say the system is broken, you'd roll your eyes because that's something it's a stock phrase right now. It's a cliche because it's so obviously true. Why do we keep behaving like it's not?
Right. Mr. Secretary, I want to thank you very much for coming in today. We appreciate your time.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.